Hello, everyone. Thank you so much again for tuning into this podcast. I really appreciate it. In this particular episode, we are going to be talking to Kathy Henrich. Now, the things that I really liked about this particular episode were we talked about goal setting and not just any kind of goal setting. Usually you set your goal, like your personal goals or milestones, or even for your team, or if you're working for your company. But this was setting a goal for not just a small group of people, but how do you set a goal for a city? Again, I appreciate all of you listening and tuning in. Let's go to the podcast right away. Thank you. Kathy, thank you so much for making the time today to do this. We're honored to have you.
Well, thanks for coming. It's fun to be here together.
Wonderful. Kathy, we've known each other for a while and I've seen you do amazing things. And, in our introduction, we've told about what MKE Tech Hub does and what it is. But I wanted to understand from your perspective, there are goals. We set goals. And then there are audacious goals. So goals are, I've heard about, you can make your team into tech innovations or having tech being driven in your company or at your company. But having that audacious goal of how to drive tech and innovation at a city level, how does that happen?
Well, first of all, it's not only the city, it's at the region.
Okay.
So we care about Southeast Wisconsin. But when you do that, I have to admit, when I took this role 4.5 years ago, it woke me up literally every night to think about how do you make transformational change happen in an economy the size of, 1 million people.
Yeah.
And it is, and that's what makes it audacious, is because you are talking about really changing the trajectory of a region. And as a small nonprofit, you don't do that alone. There's no way that you change the trajectory of the economy of the region as, an 8-person organization. What does make a difference, though, is if you can align stakeholders in the region, including your government sector, your university, your corporates, your startups, et cetera, and not other nonprofits, and collectively drive towards a mission, that can make huge impact in a region. And so that's been the fun of it, is that it isn't running an organization that has, 8 of us. It is a collaboration with an entire region to drive transformation.
I like what you say about, driving transformation and collaboration. So how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. So first of all, it starts with a vision of kind of the contributing factors that make a region change. So, it's one of those things. And I remember my first couple of weeks, somebody said you have to move supply and demand concurrently. Okay. And that is absolutely true. You have to think about, how do I create this demand, this jobs, the jobs that we have to create. Yeah. At the same time, you're creating the talent to fill those jobs. Right. And so that's when you set that vision forward, it comes down into, okay, there's a goal here of attracting both tech talent and tech individuals here to the region. Yeah. It means that we have to build talent here. So we've seen regions across the country do it wrong, where, they imported a lot of talent, and frankly, it led to a lot of social problems. And so doing this inclusively of the talent that's already here is a critical factor to this. Yes, we want newcomers. We want those new ideas. But we also want to create opportunities for individuals already living in the region. Yes. And then the third is you want to do it in a way that, yes, the corporates are going to drive jobs, but also our middle-sized companies and even startups, right? Startups are the energy that drive forward an ecosystem. And so that's why you have a focus on innovation, of creating those jobs here in the region. And then, but last but not least, you can move a region incrementally over time. But what can make a huge difference is there are, trajectory points or inflection points. And what that gets, those get created by outside in dollars. That can be federal grant competitions. That can be, a big entrance like a Microsoft into the ecosystem.
Right.
That creates an inflection point that drives the region forward at a faster pace. And so everything else has to keep up. So but that's the fun of it, is it takes all of those components, the technology, the commercialization of that, but also the talent that goes along with that as well.
That is fantastic to know, because, see, when we think about tech hubs, there are a few things that come to mind, whether it's Silicon Valley, or whether it's Shenzhen in China, or Bangalore, Hyderabad in India. These were recognized as like tech hubs because those companies were making big ripples over there. And then the talent is kind of then attracted to as well. Is that the focus, is to get more tech companies to get formed here, or is it to bring more of them here, or both?
The answer is it's an and statement.
Okay.
So first of all, the audience might be surprised to know that there are over 80,000 tech employees in Milwaukee. It's over 10.5% of our economy. That usually surprises people because of the fact in Milwaukee, it's largely embedded in traditional industries.
Okay.
So when you talk about those other tech hubs across the world, one of the things they have in common oftentimes is it's driven by tech companies.
Correct. Yes.
And so there's a perception that goes with that. In fact, it's a very interesting, driven by data that you can show that we actually have a very high percentage of our economy in tech, but not recognized because it's embedded.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that's very exciting about being now selected by a tech company, Microsoft, as a future growth location for them, is the fact that they are investing here, and that not only will impact the number of jobs, but it'll have an outsized impact just by the perception of a large multinational company has chosen Milwaukee to invest not only in best-of-breed technology around AI in their data center, but to create a co-innovation center here, one of 7 across the world, the only one in manufacturing, the only one not on the coast in the western coast of the United States. It is a huge benefit to have that, not only for the jobs it creates and the innovation that it'll drive, but also for the perception that it will create.
Absolutely. And also what happens, just as it happens in business, you get like this one big client in a way that's a big name, and then it eases the decision for the rest of them to kind of follow. So do you see that being a trend, since Microsoft has said yes, and they're coming here, or they have come here, correct me, and that will open like even more doors?
Absolutely, from a couple of different angles. So we talked about this inflection point, so the perception piece. But if you look at the Co-Innovation Center, what's really unique about the Co-Innovation Center is that is they will be bringing companies and talent from across the world.
Yes.
That includes customers, that includes their suppliers and partners, et cetera. So I'll give you an example. I spent over 30 years in a technology career. I led very large businesses, $500 million businesses at IBM. And my peers had no clue where Milwaukee was. Like, they could not point it out on a map of the Midwest or a map of the country. But we are now on the map. Milwaukee is on the map. People will be flying here. They'll recognize it's less than an hour from Chicago. And we will have people coming in and experiencing our beautiful lakefront, our wonderful food, and all from a from a quality of life perspective, they'll get to experience it. But they'll also have the ability to see the innovations being driven here around advanced manufacturing and other technologies. So it could not be a better blend of really creating that inflection point as we, work to attract other companies here to the region to set up their offices here as well.
And would you say is so important from the perspective of giving that environment for tech companies or just companies in general to thrive? Because you need support. Starting a business, I know, is not easy at all. Both from a startup as well as being a Fortune 500 companies. There are like two varying different factors that affect both. So my question to you is, how do you kind of balance your efforts on these two sides in a way?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So on the talent side,
Yeah.
so when ecosystems are measured by outside organizations, they usually measure a number of factors. One factor they measure is talent, both raw talent as well as trained talent. One of the things that's really interesting about Milwaukee, and it does not have this perception, we have the sixth highest concentration of students per capita.
Students per capita. What do you mean by that?
So if you think of the ratio of the number of students is here versus our overall population,
Yeah,
sixth highest concentration across the world.
Yeah, makes sense.
And what that means is that while there's smaller universities, there's a lot of variety, a lot of programs, and that creates both the opportunity to get early talent,
Yeah.
but also for talent that might be considering Milwaukee, there's opportunities for ongoing skilling, right? There's the opportunity to go get your master's degree, et cetera. Or if you're coming here without a bachelor's, what a great opportunity to get your bachelor's, et cetera. So the innovation that's occurring there in higher education and the ability to have post-secondary education provides a significant opportunity. But at the same time, and that's one of the things companies look for, right?
Yeah.
They look for that. They also look for the ability to create communities of people that can learn from one another.
Yes.
And what I mentioned earlier is we actually have 80,000 tech employees. It's 10.5% of our economy. There's a huge opportunity to create communities of practice here in the region, and also to have depth of skill in areas that are important to the world. The areas that we're really good at energy and water, right?
Okay.
We're really good at advanced manufacturing. We're really good, as recognized by the federal government with our Tech Hub designation, in the areas of biohealth, and even more granularly into an area called Theranostics. So we have Theranostic.
What does that mean?
It's the combination of diagnostics and therapy jointly to do personalized medicine.
Wow.
And so we are with GE Healthcare here in the region. We are actually a global hub for that particular area. And so those kinds of things matter to companies, right? That they have the ability to continually innovate, to bring outside innovation, to jointly do research with the universities, et cetera. And we have to say, we also have UW-Madison an hour away. And anybody that knows Silicon Valley, it's less than an hour it's more than an hour to go from one side to the other.
Yeah.
We have one of the top university research institutions in the world less than an hour away.
Yeah.
And so all of that contributes to the raw ingredients that we have to really drive a tech ecosystem.
Absolutely. And we have also some of if I'm not mistaken, even Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, did go to UWM, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
And also his second in charge, Brad Smith from Microsoft, grew up in Racine and then Appleton, Wisconsin. So he's also a local.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is cool. So you now mentioned about, I think, the traditional aspects, which is like having those universities, having the students, and having that flow of talent. But there is an appetite I see on the ground here for sure, and you can see it across the world where perhaps they have not been in that traditional, gone to school and gone to the postgrad program, but there's a huge interest in joining the tech sector, which may be like the non-traditional sector. What do you think is their role in this equation as well?
It's huge. And when I mentioned earlier that inclusively building an ecosystem, that's one of the key components of that. So, for example, when you think about, one of our key strategies is building a diverse tech talent pipeline.
Yeah.
We think about it in terms of both growing capacity and diversity of that talent concurrently. So, if we do this right, we're also bringing our current talent that lives here and wants to stay here into this innovation economy as well. And there are great opportunities in the region for that. Programs like IC Stars is an excellent program. That's Dev10, Tech Systems, Brooksource. There are so many opportunities to get into tech, to really start your career there. We have an apprenticeship program, et cetera, but then also grow from there. So, and that's one of the things I think makes Milwaukee attractive is you get started in tech, but you also want to continue that education because it's evolving so quickly. You have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly where both those sectors have to kind of like contribute in a way that is inclusive so that there's opportunity for everyone to play at the table in a way. Because I do see that there's a lot of importance, and like I went through that route, which is undergrad and grad and having that professional training, but that's not an inhibition or that's not a barrier for someone to like start with tech.
Yeah, and I went through the opposite. I was a marketing major in college.
Okay, yeah.
And I got trained by IBM to be a systems programmer, right? I mean, I went totally the opposite direction. And so I think firm believer and advocate for we can train tech. There's no reason that people can't learn that, whether they've gone to college or not gone to college. And I think are strong advocates to the employers, because this is all contingent on employers being willing to embrace. And what we're seeing is a transformation in our employers as well, willing to really mentor individuals that have come in through non-traditional pathways.
Yeah. One of the other things that I wanted to kind of ask you, and it would be not fair if we do not cover this topic, is that of AI, the buzzword.
Yes.
Artificial intelligence. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to slap AI in their LinkedIn profiles. But just from a realistic perspective, what's happening with AI in this ecosystem as you see it?
Yeah. So first of all, AI has been around for a very long time, as many people know. And, there are organizations like Northwestern Mutual where they are very deep in this. Financial services was a very early adopter in the industry in general and have a lot of depth. What they've done is, interestingly, they have invested in continuing to build that. So the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute, huge asset here in the region, where they've partnered with UW-Milwaukee and Marquette to invest in the growth of AI talent here in the region. So certainly a strength there. Another strength that we have, you look at MSOE with a mega supercomputer there.
Yeah.
First undergraduate AI program in the country. And, graduate programs in AI, et cetera, and a huge supercomputer sitting there. Another strength.
Yes.
So what we're seeing is, I think, yes, everything was the buzz for a while, but it's only really bringing attention to what's already here. And so we can feel good about the fact that, the NMDSI was invested in 2018. Similar, I think 2019 is when MSOE added the supercomputer in those programs. But we were well ahead of that, right? Generative AI trend. Now, are there, as there are in all regions, room for growth? Absolutely.
Okay.
Right? All regions have this. Startups and large companies adopted AI first. Mid-sized organizations have room for growth. And so what you're seeing now is those are the areas that we need to be continuing to grow the capabilities, whether that's manufacturing or other industries, that small and medium-sized organizations. Um, but the advantage we now have is that these generative AI tools allow them to engage in this ecosystem without having to have, the depth of, a data scientist, machine learning expert, et cetera, all critical. So, I think what you're seeing here is really, really great strengths, room for growth. I think you'd see that in any other place in the country as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that there are strides being made. Sometimes they are behind the curtain, so you don't get to see a lot of it, and it's not as consumer facing in a way. This leads me to ask you, uh, why did you get into this, and why do you get up to go work for this cause? Like, what attracted you to go for this?
So my personal story actually is tied to AI, believe it or not. So back in 2016, I was leading a large business for IBM, and we were implementing AI into our service management processes. And at the time, we were essentially letting people go that were doing those jobs as we automated with them with AI. And at the same time, we were trying to hire what I considered unicorns at the time, deep AI expertise. And I just believed there was a better way. I believed you could take people that understood your processes, your people, your customers, your product, all of those kinds of things, and give them the skills of AI. And so I went back, got my master's in workforce and talent development, specifically focused around AI and the changing nature of work. And as I did that, I actually went to Accenture to help companies with their digital transformations to bring their talent along. I volunteered into what was the predecessor to the MKE Tech Hub Coalition. And, but the reason I joined to lead this cause was kind of going back to an earlier topic. If we, we all know that tech is going to be the future of our economy.
Yeah.
It underlies everything, regardless of the industry. And we have to be thinking about innovation, et cetera. And if we are, we're going to drive a long-term, enduring economy. And a strong economy solves a lot of social problems if done inclusively.
Yeah.
And so this to me is my give back part of my career. It is about making an impact locally that hopefully has impact for generations to come.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing in the community, in the region, and for the larger cause that we see that connects all of us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have to talk again. I have so many more questions that I would love to cover with you, but just the fact that you made time today to do this is phenomenal. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
This was great. This podcast is brought to you by the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. The Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition is a member-based nonprofit on a mission to inclusively grow the vibrant tech ecosystem in Southeast Wisconsin. They help drive innovation by creating catalytic connections. From their tech-focused job boards, events calendars, and monthly meetup groups, there are countless ways to plug into the tech ecosystem. Milwaukee's vibrant urban living, thriving food and art scene, and downtown views of Lake Michigan offer the benefits of a big city but with the prices of a small one. If you want to build your tech career in Milwaukee, get connected to choosemketech.org. Thank you so much for listening to this, and a huge shout out to the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition for supporting this podcast.